Hi, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. Today I am actually doing, I think it's a really exciting video. I have duped a few new releases and I'm so excited to share them with you. This is just like a key note to shop your stash. Like, don't just like think that a palette is like so new and revolutionary and like, I mean, I have a decently sized collection, but if you take a look, I'm sure you would be able to find things in your collection to either give you the same vibes or completely dupe it all together. So before we get started, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. It does help me out. Also, I do want to note that I'm like looking at my hair right now. I am trying to just like let my natural like wave and curl like flourish. So if in the next few videos you see just like some weird changes with my hair, I am trying to like be as heatless as possible because I think that curly hair is actually so pretty, and like especially like I love like my hair texture and like the wave pattern I have. So I'm super excited. This is like the second wash, but like I rinsed my hair and didn't wash it yesterday, and like I really love how this turned out. Once I figure out my curl, maybe I'll do a video on how I style my hair. It's like very low maintenance because I am a low maintenance kind of person when it comes to my hair. Yeah, I'm digressing. Let's just get into duping palettes. I have some like swatch clips that I will pair along with the palettes because the first one I'm going to mention actually has like two loose shadows that I used in this. However, you don't need any of this. I'm just going to clarify. You don't need any of the palettes that I'm going to say. You don't need to purchase additional things. I have actually 3 things that I duped for this video because I don't want to make this video like an hour long or anything like that. So I'm going to start with the one that I've duped first, and the one that has like some, okay, I'm going to call them floaters because they're not items that can be set into this pan. So the first palette that I duped, it is the Natasha Denona bronze palette, and I'm not someone who like wants to do like a neutral look all the time. As we can see, very, very colorful looks. I did film this. It'll be up next week. This is a look using all of my Pandos eyeshadows. I did a pretty decent job duping this, and you're gonna notice a couple gaps up here and there, and that's because I actually used 2 loose shadows that I have in my collection. So I duped 3 of these shades are actually Natasha Denona shades. So this, where are you? And this guy are Natasha Denona shades. A lot of these are actually from my James Charles and Morphe palette. And then others are just like Colourpop singles or shades that were in Colourpop palettes. Yeah, I was able to dupe this. You can see in the clip. I feel like this is a pretty decent dupe of the Natasha Denona palette. And 2 of these shades I'm actually decluttering out of my collection, and it's this like red tone bronze, and then I'm debating with this one still, but I think I'm going to be decluttering that one. I don't reach for those like slightly deeper toned bronzes, and I'm like flirting with the idea of decluttering this loose pigment in Rose by MAC. I don't like it on my eyes at all, but it does make a really pretty like nail polish color. So the first shade is from the Camel palette. This is the shade Copper Stone by Natasha Denona. The next one is from the Safari palette. That's Thorn, followed by a Colourpop single in Bump This, a Morphe James Charles palette shade in the shade Benny, and then any blue brown would work in place of this, but I used a MAC blue brown. The next is a Colourpop shade in Feathered, followed by another James Charles Morphe in the shade Halloween, then another Colourpop single in the shade 20-something, then Natasha Denona Tamarind from the Safari palette, followed by the James Charles shade in Wig, another James Charles in the shade Shook. Then I have a shade from my Bare Necessities palette by Colourpop, which is in the shade Rumored. I think that shade is absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to actually use that one. That one's so gorgeous. Then I have that MAC Rose pigment as the kind of goldy pinky flip. Then the next comes from the Morphe 35F Fall into Frost palette, the shade Swoon. And then from the Going Coconuts palette by Colourpop, the shade Lovely Bunch. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think that this is a spot on dupe for the Natasha Denona. I mean, except for like barring the blue brown pigment, because that I don't think matches what the shade is, but I know I would never use that shade. So I think overall I did a pretty bang up job on this palette. Like, these palettes didn't really interest me, but I thought that it would be fun to dupe them. So the next palette is actually probably the one that has the most exciting color story, and that's saying something because I feel like all of these palettes are pretty bland. So the next palette is the Kylie Cosmetics and Kendall Jenner like collab that they did, and I had no interest in this palette other than like the slight rainbow that they had. I thought that this was just a very pale neutral palette. Like, this would look good if you had the complexion of Wonder Bread. Maybe as deep as me, but like predominantly like very lightly toasted toast. So this is my rendition of that palette, and I think I did a pretty good job on this. The shade that I think I struggled the most was this shade here, because I don't have a lot of purples in my collection. However, I think that that shade fits perfectly. So just kind of gonna run down the list. But the first shade is actually from my Bare Necessities by Colourpop, the shade Full Expose. Then a Morphe James Charles in the shade So Good, followed by a shade in the Colourpop Going Coconuts called Palm Reader, a Colourpop single in Running Late, then a Luxie shadow in Lick It, Slam It, Suck It. Then the second row is the Colourpop single in Wake Up Call, another Luxie shadow in Cream and Sugar. The next three are from the James Charles Morphe palette, the shade B, the shade 518, and then the shade Social Blade. Then another one from the Morphe Boss Mood palette, and that is the shade Play It Cool, a Colourpop single in the shade In Frequency, one of the Bare Necessity shades in Hot Gossip, a Colourpop single in Oh Ship, and a Colourpop Sailor Moon Pretty Guardian palette in Miracle Romance. So again, I think I'll have like the picture of like the Kylie Cosmetics one versus this. I think I did a really good job on this palette. These shades here, which are all like relatively the same, and even like up here, all four of those are basically the same shade with just slightly different undertones. So as we can see up here, that one has almost a yellow undertone, a neutral undertone, a pink undertone, and then this one's just slightly darker and more orange undertoned. I actually think that this would be a pretty palette. I really don't understand why she has so many of these pops of colors without any corresponding like shimmer or like a shade that would really universally look well with them. This shade that I duped out, I think this would look good with the green and then the yellow, but like not really these two. Like the green or the purple and the red, I just don't see like those two really fitting in with that palette. So really proud of what I did with this though. And then the last palette I duped was actually super recent that I duped this. I think as soon as I saw the launch picture or like the picture of the release, I duped it. And the palette that I'm talking about is the Colourpop Cosmetics Wild Nothing palette. So I'll have a picture posted, but this is kind of what I duped it with. Now, the big standout is that this green is the only exciting color in this palette. This is another palette that really would only work if you have a skin tone the same as mine or even lighter, maybe a shade darker than me, but overall this palette just is geared towards more light and fair complexions. This would not work on deeper skin tones, which is a shame because, I mean, Colourpop needs to do better. Like, everyone needs to do better with releasing inclusive product. I will tell you what shades I have in this. The first is from the Morphe James Charles palette, and that is the shade Canvas. Then I have a Bare Minerals Depotted shade from the Winner Is duo called Chart Topper. Then I have a shade from the Boss Mood palette by Morphe called Light of the Party. Then another depotted Bare Mineral shade from the Guilty Pleasure duo called a Colourpop single in Best Coast Scenario, a Morphe 35M Boss Moods in Bold Moves. That's that beautiful green. Then I have a shade from Looksy Beauty in Bitch Fit, followed by another Bare Minerals in the Scenic Route duo called Breathtaking, a Looksy Shadow in Dolce, a Colourpop in Charge It, another Looksy in Dopio, and then one of the larger shades from the James Charles palette called No Beans. I think I did a pretty darn good job duping that. Again, that green is really the only one that I had a pretty difficult time duping. I don't have any that are just kind of muted greens and diluted greens like that in my collection. Especially, I'm someone that really likes an impactful green eyeshadow anyway, so that probably wouldn't add much to my collection. It could be something that would be worn every day and kind of just give you a tint of a green if you're really looking to step into greens. But overall, I think I did a pretty darn good job duping that palette also. Honorable mention, I'm going to have like a little clip here. I was working on duping the Pure Raw Beauty Christie palette. I duped the majority of the colorful side with ease. Most of those shades I have in my Zulu palette. If you have the Zulu palette and only the colorful side of the Pure Raw Beauty Christie palette really spoke to you, I highly suggest using that and duping out those shades that you're interested in. I had, I think, all but 3 shades from that palette were able to dupe the shades in the Pure palette. The neutral side I actually had a hard time duping. I did try to dupe the palettes using all different shades. So you'll notice none of these palettes had the same shades in them, which made it really easy and convenient for me to kind of report back like that palette there, this palette here. So you know I'm not lying that none of these palettes had the same shades in them. And as you can see, especially this Colourpop one, a lot of these shades look roughly the same. I mean, all of those neutrals in here look pretty similar to each other. I mean, I have a plethora of transition neutrals. Every palette comes with some form of like transition type shades. So I'm sure you could dupe a majority of these palettes. Let me know if you have duped palettes, what palettes are catching your eye. Let me know if there's any other releases that you would like to see dupes of. I'm more than happy to do more of these dupe kind of videos. And yeah, don't forget, next week you'll be able to catch this eye look in action. You will see me putting it on and just kind of see what my steps were to create this super colorful, yet I feel like it's wearable look using all of my Pan Those eyeshadow shades. If you haven't seen my Pan Those eyeshadows, I will link it up above and down in the cards. And until next time, I hope you're healthy, stay safe, stay sane, and stay safe. I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!